Imagine this. You're an 8, 9-year-old girl, and you're reading this book about a beautiful blonde girl in high school. She's dating a kind, tall, handsome, sensitive guy. And everyone at school is talking about you two. You guys they're quickly becoming the most popular couple at school. However, there's a problem. Her parents don't approve of him because he's Mexican. And according to her parents, those type of people are trouble. Then imagine you're reading another book, and this one is about a girl named Rose. She's the new girl at school. Everybody wants to talk to her. Everybody wants to hang out with her. She's quickly becoming the popular girl too. But she has a secret. Her name is not really Rose. It's actually Rosa. And she's not from Boston like she claims to be. She's from Texas and she's Mexican. But she's so embarrassed of her heritage and culture that she's afraid that if her new friends find out the truth, they're not going to want to hang out with her any longer. These two books were actually published, and they were part of the Sweet Valley High book series, a series that I was obsessed with in the early 90s. I so wanted to go to Sweet Valley High. I wanted to be those girls. I wanted to date those guys. And I just wanted to just be part of the popular crowd. So you could just imagine what these two stories, these two books, made me feel about my identity as a Latina. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of people that looked like me that I could look up to in television, in books, or in magazines. But I did read a lot. And I also loved to play pretend. The thing about playing pretend with me is that it allowed me to become people that in my mind I never thought I could ever be. It allowed me to pretend that I could be on a stage like this, that I could be a scientist, that I could be a fashion designer, a news broadcaster, a detective. Because I only thought in my head there was a voice that would tell me that those awesome, cool things that I would read about and watch on TV only happened to other people, not people with my brown skin. Last year, 3,400 children's books were published. Out of those 3,400, only 4.9% were about Latino characters, 8% African American characters, 7% Asian American characters. In recent years, the numbers of Black characters in children's books have definitely doubled, and we have seen a small increase in Latino and Asian American characters. But we're not even close to be where we should be. When I became pregnant with my first child a few years ago, I thought about those things and about me growing up. And as an adult, I realized that I felt the way I felt, and I saw myself not worthy enough because I didn't see living proof of the same people of my color in these platforms and spaces. So I promised myself that I was not ever going to allow my son to ever feel that way, because he deserves to believe that he can do anything he wants. So the first thing I said to myself was, what can I introduce my child that would give him the proof the minute that he's born that he belongs wherever he wants to be? And I thought about books. And I went looking for these books. I wanted books that celebrated my culture, celebrated who I was, that were proud of the way I spoke, my language, the color of my skin, without ever feeling ashamed. And I went looking for these books, and I couldn't really find them. And I was kind of disappointed because I thought that by now, these books would have existed already. Somebody should have created them already. But instead, I found translated classics of the books that we grew up with. You know which ones, Where the Wild Things Are, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. We all read those books growing up. But we all know those books were not created for us, for marginalized communities. They were never intended or written for us, people of color. So I said, somebody needs to hurry up and create these books because I want to buy them for my child. And then I said, wait, why don't I create the books? But then that voice in my head, the one that keeps telling me that I'm not good enough, kind of came back in here and started saying, who do you think you are? You don't have the permission to write these books or create these books. But now old enough, I understood that that was just a monster that does not exist in my head. And I said, I'm going to create this manuscript, and I'm going to find a publisher that can publish these for me. And I was really excited. I was really motivated. I really thought a publisher was going to say, this is a great idea, Patty. Why haven't we thought about this? But instead, those publishers that did get back to me, they all said no. And I wasn't surprised. And I was discouraged, and I forgot about the idea, and I moved on with my life. Then a few years later, in 2014, I had a house fire. My family wasn't at all at home, so that's a huge blessing. But I don't know if you ever have gone through something that stressful, but it's hard. It's really stressful. You are one day, you have everything you ever worked for, and the next day it's all gone. You don't have anything. All you have are the underwear that you left that morning with. That is it. And I got really depressed, and I started questioning my existence, who I was as a human being, as a Latina, and as a mother. And I remembered the books and the manuscript. And at that time, they still were not, these books did not exist yet. And I said, you know what? I am going to do this. This house fire was a sign for me to be reborn and do this for my community and my children. So I got re-inspired, re-motivated, and I started sending out the idea, the manuscript, to independent publishers, thinking that independent publishers understand how marginalized communities aren't represented or heard. And I'm on the phone with one of them, and I'm really excited, sharing my story. I'm like, I'm going to change the world with these books. You know, we have to publish them. He cuts me mid-sentence and tells me, young lady, you're wasting your time. Latinos don't read to their kids. And I had heard that before. Not exactly in those words, but we've all heard it as members of marginalized communities, one way or another. In the lack of representation in television, in the lack of stories in books and magazines, even in our heads, when we tell ourselves that we can't do something because of the color of our skin, or we don't believe in ourselves because it's been ingrained since birth that we're second-class citizens. And right there and then, I decided to stop that voice in my head and decided that I needed to do this. So I called my best friend, Ariana, and we start exchanging ideas, and we're really excited, and we're telling each other, we're going to do this, we're going to change the world. Our children are going to wake up and see themselves in books, and they're going to be celebrated. And then we looked at each other, and we're like, how are we going to do this? But we managed because we had the heart. And we created our publishing company, a bilingual publishing company for children. We called it Lil Libros, which translates to little books. A few months later, we published our first 3 books. Then 3 months later, we published our 3 more books. And then now we have 9 titles. And thanks to the support of our community, our parents, our grandparents, and our children, these books are now available at Target, at Barnes & Noble, at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, at the LA County, thank you, at the LA County Museum of Art. And you know, this is not just about these books. This is about all of us here. All of us here are capable of becoming role models and mentors for our children. We're all capable of creating a world for them where they wake up knowing they belong. When I started looking for these children's books when I was pregnant with my child, I would go to these stores and I would ask them for, where can I find your Latino books, or where can I find your bilingual books or your Spanish books? And they will always motion to the back of a store to aisle X, Y, and Z, the last aisle. They would say, oh, they're over there. And I would ask, is this all you have available? And they would say, well, they don't really sell. And I really wanted to say, how do you expect them to sell when you have them in the back? And that's how I felt most of my life. How do you expect me to achieve and be the best I can be when you're having us in the back? When you're not giving us the opportunities that others are given? So, I invite you all here to join me and speak up. Go to these stores, go to the movie theater, ask for our stories, buy our stories, watch our stories, listen to our stories, seek our stories. Because our children deserve role models that look like them. Thank you.